Welcome back. Welcome back to the A Queens Roundtable Leadership Symposium. This particular one is called the Business Accelerator Bootcamp. That's right. So, if you don't already know, I'm going to let you know the purpose of this boot camp is for you to be able to take your business or businesses to the next level, right? Some of you may be new entrepreneurs, or some of you may be seasoned entrepreneurs, right? But you're looking to move into different streams or to create different streams of income in your business. So, this particular episode, I have two excellent guests that are going to share their expertise with you in regards to podcasting, being able to how to, sorry, some different things to consider when you're looking to start a podcast and or you already have a podcast, but you're not quite gaining the traction that you want to. So Alicia's gonna give you some excellent tips and tools on that. You know what? If you have not got a paper and pen, please do so. I'll give you a minute to go ahead and do that. All right. Otherwise you'll regret it. My second guest, Marcus, he is going to talk to you about taking your live show to the next level. Again, maybe you already have a show and you need to tweak it a little bit, not quite getting the viewership that you want. He's going to tell you why or give you some tips and tools that can definitely help you in that area. So without further ado, I don't even know if I introduced myself. I can't remember. I'm Jacqueline Kabay Harrison. I am your host for this event. And thank you so much for joining us. And also, too, make sure you check out all of the other panels as well. Okay. So Marcus, if you would like, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell them who you are, who you serve, and your why behind your business or businesses.
Well, good afternoon, or good evening, or good morning, wherever you are. Doesn't matter. It's great to see you. My name is Marcus A. Wright, and I'm CEO of Marcus A. Wright LLC. Um, I can tell you, just to be quite honest, I host a show called Right Mentality. You heard it, Right Mentality. Why do I host a show called The Right Mentality? Why is all my social media wrapped around right mentality? Because it's all about the right mentality. It's about knowing who you are before you move to whatever level you're going to. See, everyone wants to talk about their why. But if you don't know who you are, it's hard to find your why. So, what I do as an certified emotional intelligence coach, certified John Maxwell coach, certified certified behavioral consultant. Again, I'm kind of mixed up, and also certified neuro linguistic programming person. I get involved with everything. I try to help people understand who they are, their personality, before they go to that level, the next level, whether it's opening a business or they're trying to get promoted at work or they're trying to figure out what's going on in a relationship, whatever it may be, that's what I help you with. So, my show again is called Right Mentality, and you can find me anywhere right here, Right Mentality. That's my social media handle across all social media. The name of my show is Right Mentality, The Impact of Emotional Intelligence. And my podcast is also called Right Mentality.
Oh, all right. I didn't realize you had a podcast too. Great.
Yes, ma'am.
Excellent. Okay. Go ahead, Alicia.
Hi, everybody. My name is Alicia Ford, and I am the Impact Mentor. You can find me on Instagram at the Impact Mentor, or you can find me at theimpactmentor.com. And I am the host of Position to Impact podcast. We are 4 seasons deep. Super excited about that. Just to be able to say it is amazing. And so pretty much what Position to Impact podcast is I started Position to Impact because I wanted a platform where I could talk deeper about the entrepreneurial and leadership experience. We always want to talk about strategy, we always want to talk about marketing, we always want to talk about ways of making money and sales and things like that, but we don't ever want to talk about hey, I'm an entrepreneur and I have anxiety, or hey, I'm an entrepreneur and I'm dealing with depression, or hey, I'm also a caregiver for elderly parents, or whatever the case may be. We don't want to talk about all aspects of what makes us human. So I wanted a platform designed to have real conversations with entrepreneurs and leaders, um, and about how they serve their community, how they serve their business, how they serve their family. And that's what we talk about. We talk about just being a human and while we wear, multiple roles and hats and things like that. I am also the owner of position of Be Impactful Consulting and Agency. So I help business owners, online business owners, build second business models around digital products, as well as with the agency piece, we do done for you services for six-figure brands. And we actually build out those funnels and actually build out those business models for them because they're busy. So
I like
that's
that.
what we do.
All right, awesome. I don't know if I missed it, but let me know how long you guys have been in business. And just curious, have you rebranded at any point?
So I've been in business for 7 years. I would say I rebranded after 2 years in. So my original business was Be Your Own Image, and I ended up getting it tattooed on my arm. And then and then the deeper I got into it and the more I started to niche and niche and niche, um it, as hard as it was to let go of it, let go of the name, it didn't match because image, most people think of like image consulting, and that's not what I was doing.
Mhm.
So I had to let it go. But since then, everything has been beautiful and wonderful since I let it go.
Okay.
Mhm.
Well, for me, I began my journey into my own business about 6.5 years ago, maybe seven, something like that. Um, and yes, I did rebrand. So when I actually started out, the name of my company was called JH Consulting. And the reason it was called JH Consulting was my business name was wrapped around my brother and my dad. J being Jason, which was my brother's name, and H was Hugo, which was my father's name. They both passed away. My dad died in 2007. My brother died in 2014. So when I started this, the impact was I wanted to actually make an impact on people. However, I had to realize that I had to be true to myself. I had to understand that I needed to know who I was before I could serve other people. So the rebranding began, and the company changed from JH Consulting to Marcus A. Wright LLC. And then I decided that my social media presence shouldn't just be my name, should be something very impactful. So I changed everything to right mentality at that point. So that's why I grab and gravitate everything around right mentality. The parent company is Marcus A. Wright LLC, but the right mentality gave me an opportunity first to say, I know who I am. So now I have who I am. So now I can understand and create my why and what I can do to serve people. So that's why I switched everything up. And that's why the entire social media stratosphere, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, Clubhouse, Facebook, Twitter, whatever's out there, it's all right mentality.
Mhm.
And if you look that up, that's what you're going to find. And that's why I completely rebranded myself.
You know, I'm sitting here and I remember trying to find you on, I think it was LinkedIn. I want to tag you on a post and I put your name in and I didn't, you know how you put the name in and it'll pop up.
Mhm.
It didn't pop up, but your logo popped up. And I was, is that, and I didn't know that that was you
Mhm.
initially, but so I'm with you now. We're
Yeah,
here
in
to
order to find me on LinkedIn, you have to put in Marcus A. Wright. If you just put in Marcus Wright, you
a
won't really
whole
find
bunch
me.
of names pop up.
But if you put in Marcus
Okay.
A. Wright, I'm usually going to be the first. And then what, or if you type in right mentality, You're going to find me in both places under my name, and then you're going to find me on my business page because I feel that having right mentality is so important to help people understand who they are and their thought process and what they're trying to do, and to have the right mental focus. I put my business page as right mentality, and
Okay.
I stand by it. And I'm so happy it's now trademarked.
Oh, okay. Look, okay.
All
So,
right.
so let's use that to segue into. I know. So you have the show and you have the podcast.
Hmm.
So tell us a little bit about that. How and you know whatever, however you want to spin it is, or what you want to talk about first is completely fine. But I'm thinking, I want you to share with us because some people may be listening and say, okay, you're right. A lot of times people talk about, what's your specialty and things of that nature, but they miss that step, that whole step about who am I. So talk about how does that play into that? Like when you first get
Hmm.
if you're helping someone
Hmm.
start their own show, right?
Hmm.
Taking their live show to the next level or creating a show just, from
Oh, sure.
foundation. How does all of that play interact together? That's
Well,
what I'm
first of all, if you're going to do a show on the internet, you are, competing against tons and tons of people. So your show needs to be something that's going to be entertaining and educational
saying.
and getting people excited about what you're going to be talking about. So what I did was I made a list of everything that I thought I wanted to talk about on my show. And I looked at that list and I had to ask myself, is this Marcus? Is this something you would talk about? Is this really something that you would be impactful about? Well, people want to see it. If you talk about, for example, a topic of, now this is silly, so forgive me, wedding dresses and shopping for wedding dresses. Now, don't ask me why I'm thinking about that. Maybe because my daughter's 20 and she sits around in that show that's called Yes to the Dresses. So I don't know what it's called, but they all watch that show. That's not me. That's not who I am. So I know that I can't put a show on, an era show that's not going to be about me, because people want to know that you're humanistic, that you're very humanistic. You, I'm a human. I'm just regular. And they also want to know that you're real, and they want to feel you when you're having a conversation, right? So I had to look through that list and I pulled out the things that I knew that I would enjoy talking about that would get people enthusiastic. So I started with my list at first. Then I started looking at guests that I may want to invite to my show. And then I started thinking, how am I going to put this out here? How am I going to get people impacted to come to my show so that I can make an impact? Once you start with those things there, now you ask yourself, who am I? I made all this list. Who am I? Am I going to be able to talk about this? Are people going to want to hear what I have to say? Once I did that, it made a huge difference because my show has been seen all over the world. It's been seen in Germany. It's been seen in the United Kingdom. It's been seen in Australia, uh, which kind of blew me away when I found out I got to Australia and in South Korea as well. But that's how I started out, making that list out and doing that. And then going online and doing a 45-second pitch to the audience about what my show's going to be about and getting them ready. Because I love to say, I mean, I'm sorry, I stole it, T.O. I'm sorry, but I know I make it better. I always tell people, get your popcorn ready because you're not going to want to miss what Marcus A. Wright is going to talk about today. You're not going to want to miss it. You get people excited.
Mhm.
Now they want to see what you're talking about. And that's how I started my show.
So you do like a little like a preview, like let's just say you're doing an upcoming show this Saturday.
Hmm.
You like do like a quick live
Yes.
and tell them, okay. So
I'll
you
do
so you do that in addition to circulating graphics, like with your particular guests and so forth.
it. Correct.
Okay.
So I have, I'll give you I'll give you an example, audience. I have a new segment of the show that's in the works right now. I got a special guest that's going to be hanging out with me for a little while. It's interesting. I am bringing my wife on the show. Why? I don't know. I haven't figured it out either, but you will get an opportunity to see Sonora F. Wright. That's right. My wifey, my better half. Well, I don't know. I might be the better half, but I'm not going to tell her that. So, what I'm going to tell you is you're not going to want to miss it. So, get your popcorn ready because, and I will give the date that the show is going to drop. You're going to want to see it. That's literally how I advertise what's coming on. And I do it across all the platforms.
Okay. All right. I think I have another question, but I'm gonna wait.
Okay.
I'm gonna hold on to it for a second. So, Miss Alicia,
Yes, ma'am.
so let me ask you,
Mhm.
in reference to podcasting,
Okay.
I'm I'm watching this and I'm thinking, I don't know. I thought about doing a podcast, but I don't really know where to start.
Mhm.
What would you say? What sort of tips and tools can you give to a young lady or gentleman that may be looking to start a podcast? What do they need to do first?
My thought process is very similar to Marcus. First thing I would tell you is do not go and look at other people's podcasts.
Mm,
I, I
mhm,
would I would tell you that. Um, when I sat down and say, okay, well, motive. Why do you want to start a podcast? Do you want to start a podcast because you think it'd be a lucrative business? Do you want to start a podcast because you want it to be an extension of your brand? Do you want to
mm,
start a podcast because all the cool kids are doing it? Right? You have to ask yourself that question because you're going whether you're doing a live show, whether you're doing a podcast, there's commitment involved. There's
mm,
going to be days when you don't feel like doing it. There's going to
mhm,
be days where you don't feel like recording nothing. And you have to know that the reason why you're doing this is what's going to push you enough to keep going
mhm,
when it's not so glamorous, right? And you're not getting all the accolades and the oohs and the ahs, right? So I would start with, why do I really want to do this? Am I doing this for the fame and the fortune, or am I doing this because I actually have something to say? And if you're leaning more towards I have something to say, that will sustain you until the fame and the fortune comes. The second thing is, so that goes back to, don't look at everybody else. You can't. You cannot be a cookie cutter of anybody else because they're successful because it's them. You won't be as successful because you're trying to be them. You have to be you.
mhm,
So when I sat down and actually decided that I wanted to do a podcast, it was me and a Google document, blank,
mm,
crisp, clean piece of paper. And I asked, what do I want this show to look like? And I said, what do I want? Not what I've seen, not what I know, not what somebody else is doing. What do I want? What do I want to talk about? And I didn't really get into the topics, but I wanted to like the overall theme. So my podcast, Position to Impact, every last one of my episodes are themed the impact of. And that's just what I wanted. So, giving yourself permission to actually create something that you want, not based on what you've seen already, because when you create it from internal, it's yours. Like you own it and it becomes intuitive and it becomes the thing that sets you apart. To Marcus's point, there are a lot of people in this podcasting live show space. However, niching is a real thing, and you'll be surprised once you actually get into this, you'll find that it's a lot. People go in many different directions. You have podcasts where they talk about horror stories,
mhm,
crime, they more book like book club esque type. You do have your typical business ones and marketing ones, but people go in a lot of different directions, and that's the beautiful part about podcasting and live shows is that when you are authentic to what it is that you're trying to do, you will naturally stand out with your podcast or your live show. So Write down what you want it to look like. I had everything written from what the theme was, how I wanted to intake guests, what I wanted guests to do, um, how I wanted, how frequently. You have to know how frequently. Are you gonna do this once a week? Are you gonna do this twice a week? Are you gonna do this every other week? When I first started out, because I worked a full-time job and I was running a business, there was no way I could do this every week. As much as I would have liked to, realistically, I knew I was not going to try to set myself up for failure. So I did a bi-weekly podcast. I did it. I released a new episode every other week. And if that's what you have to start out with, then that's just what you have to start out with. But put that on paper. And I knew I wanted to release on Fridays. So every other Friday was when I would release an episode. So you have to put on paper those things. What do you want? And then from there, the next thing is find platforms. Now, and there's so many now. Like when I first started, you had to know how to fully upload to Apple.
Mm-hmm.
You had to know how to fully upload to Google and Spotify. And I didn't. I'm not a technical person to that capacity, but I'm a curious person and I will dig and I will dig and I will dig and I will dig. And I found Anchor, Anchor.fm.
Mm-hmm.
That is my poison of choice. It is free. I never have to pay anything. And they mass distribute for you. They will put your podcast on Google and Spotify. And now Spotify owns them. So they didn't used to be owned by Spotify. Spotify bought them. So now you get all the bigger, perks of Spotify being the owner of Anchor now. But till this day, they still don't charge. And people think that because they do that for you and they're not charging you, then they own it. So if you are more popular on Apple, then they're getting the perks. And no, if you go and you read the terms and conditions, they do not own your content. That is your content. You get the perks, you get the benefits, everything. So they don't own anything. They just distribute for you. So Anchor.fm is a fantastic tool. You upload to Anchor and they distribute your episodes across those platforms automatically. You don't have to think about it. And so those would be so getting started would be one, motive. Two, what do you want this thing to look like? Map out the logistics, map out the theme, map out what you want to talk about, all of that stuff. And then three, where do you upload? Now you have a platform where you can actually upload it. In terms of marketing, I mean, I'm pretty similar to Marcus. I just don't do it. I used to do it. I used to market my episodes a couple of days before each episode, but I don't do that anymore now that I've switched to, I do post every week now, but now I do it twice a week. So now I'm in the position where I can drop 2 episodes twice a week. So there's no need for me to promote so frequently.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm promoting, I'm dropping new episodes more frequently. So I will market the day of. Now, when I'm doing seasons, I chose to do seasons. So that's another thing. I chose to do seasons. I knew I wanted to do seasons.
Seasons as opposed to what? What's the other option?
Continuation. You know how you see people,
okay.
they're like, oh, episode 365. I I knew I would want to break.
Me.
Oh yeah, no. I knew I wanted built-in breaks. I knew I only want to focus on, 12 to 16 episodes, and then y'all not gonna see me for like a couple of months. Then I'll come back.
Wow.
And that's how I did mine.
Okay.
That's why they call her the impact mentor, y'all. That's why they call her that.
But that's important stuff. Like I intuitively knew me. Like Marcus said earlier, who are you? I know me. Work with yourself. That's why to me, it's important for everybody to write down what they want, not what they think the industry is telling them to do, not what these marketing gurus are telling you. What do you want? And own it. Because once I owned it, once I had it on paper, even when because I didn't tell anybody. I didn't tell anybody what I was building or creating until I had it crafted and I knew like this is what I wanted. Then when I started telling my friends and family, of course, now they're starting to critique. Well, they do it this way. Oh, now they're trying to bring me all of these podcasting gurus. And I was like, thank you, but no, thank you. This is how I'm doing it. This is how I want to do it. This is how we're going to do it. And now through the seasons, I was definitely more rigid when I first started. Like I did it to the T of how I wanted it. And then as time I relaxed. And
I
watched
remember.
yeah. Because Jacqueline
You
was
even
part of
had the, well,
that
these are
first
the
little crew.
emails that you need to send out
Mm-hmm.
to advertise the product. They don't have to think about it. Boom, here it is. Send this out, and I will be checking to make sure you send it out on the day that I tell you to send it out. So
Yes.
I know.
But in the beginning that helped because
Yeah.
I needed help marketing. So the first 2 seasons, yes, I was very strict about if you were going to be on the show, because I'm not charging you, because a lot of people don't realize that there are some podcasts they charge you to be on their podcast. I
Yes.
wasn't charging. So, but in order for you to be on my show, you had to commit, and I was very clear. I even get Jacqueline, remember I sent out packets. This is what you can expect. This is what you're committing to, all of that stuff. But I knew that's what I wanted before I even started building it. And I was very clear with myself. But I knew I wanted to leverage my guest's audience because I didn't have the podcast audience yet. So I'll make your graphics for you. I'll give you the copy. I'll give you the emails. You don't have to write nothing. I'll do it for you. All I just wanted the commitment is that you will send this email and that you will post this and you will tag me to the post. And they did it because I was very clear and upfront with and so over time, I don't do it anymore. I still give graphics, but I definitely don't give copy and emails and stuff like that anymore. Um, but like I said, now I I promote the day of. Now I'm very aggressive the day of now. So you're going to see maybe about 3 different slides on stories. You're gonna see plus audio sound bites.
Mm.
You're gonna see like just the square social media posts, but you're also gonna see sound bites, and you're gonna see that all day. So that day of the release, so like on Tuesdays and Fridays, I'm just gonna saturate you with with that episode because I don't have a separate podcast social media account. I started to, but then I was like, this is too much. So I would rather just use my normal social media, but I don't want to just have it nothing but podcast. I have other things that I'm doing and promoting, but I know on that day, podcast.
There you go.
I have a question. So I know, to me, Anchor, like hands down. I use Anchor, but what are some? So I'm sorry, two questions. What is some of the other platforms that people choose to use other than Anchor? And though, what do you call them? Sound bites.
Mhm.
Okay, if you could just kind of share like what the name of that is, because some people may not. Well, first of all, they may not even know exactly what that is, or what to Google to even figure out, how they can create something like that.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So there are a lot. Again, you can upload directly to Apple. You can upload directly to Google. You can up. I know some people use Podbean. I think what's her name in the beginning, Amy Porterfield used to use Podbean. So if you actually went to her website, where the episode was, it was a Podbean. Um, what's the word? Embed. There's a new platform. I've looked at it. It's called Hello.am or something like that. Um, which they're more like supporting people to do more like private podcasting, and that's different. And we won't get into that. That's a whole different beast. But that's also a platform, and an oldie but goodie. Before I got on Anchor, I was on SoundCloud. There used to be a lot because Apple and Google made it just really hard to upload to
Yeah.
their platform. So people had to find other ways. So SoundCloud was the easiest thing that you could do.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of people who still do their podcast on SoundCloud. So I was on SoundCloud for a while.
Okay,
Mhm.
all
And the
right.
second part of your question, audiograms is technically what they're called. They're called audiograms.
Okay.
And you can manually do them, which I used to do for many years. But then Headliner came and they do them for me. And
Mm.
I don't have to do them. Like I tell them what my podcast is, and they know every time a new episode drops, they automatically make it for me. 'Cause I'm a bit of a perfectionist, so it would teeny bit of a perfectionist to the point where it would take too much time for me to even pick what sound clip I wanted. I'm like going through each episode. I'm like, oh, which one should I use? Well, now because they do it for me automatically, I don't have to do it. So they'll make it for me. It's sitting there already for me, and then all I do is share it. So I don't have to do anything.
Okay.
She
All right.
said, bit of a perfectionist. Well, that's why she's the impact mentor. If she didn't
That's right.
wasn't a perfectionist, she couldn't make the impact that she needs when you need help. I'm just saying.
There's a big difference between excellence and perfection. You shouldn't be striving for perfection, but
Definitely
excellence is
excellent.
always
Yeah.
always necessary.
Mm.
Yeah.
Y'all
Yeah.
heard it from the impact mentor right now. You heard it. So you better listen.
Okay. So, oh, let me check on time. All right. So, Marcus, this is
Yes, ma'am.
this is for you, starting out for you, but Alicia, I'm sure you chime in on this at some point. How do you, well, I wanted to ask you, how do you go about selecting your guests? And do you find that, I know you have the live show
Hmm.
and you have the podcast. Now, did you originally say to yourself, I'm going to do a live show and a podcast, or did it start as a podcast and move to a live show, or, talk to us a little bit about both of those?
So first of all, the podcast is just dropping. It hasn't been out that long. It's just
Okay.
starting. I
All right.
decided to take that plunge. And the impact mentor, y'all, she just gave me some stuff to think
Some
about.
ideas, right? Okay.
But the show, how I go about picking my guests. Well, I got to find people that I can have fun with. So when I say have fun, I want to be able to have an impactful educational conversation, right? So I invite people to the show that has something to say. And before I have them on the show, we have a conversation. So again, it always goes back to who you are, knowing who you are. Because when you have that guest on your show, and I believe this is the same for even a podcast, and Alicia can definitely, I really want to see what her opinion is. But I like for the people to know me and understand what I'm going to talk about. So I vet them a little bit and I ask them some specific questions so that we can get to know each other and see how we're going to work together on the show and dialogue. Because you want, like I said, I am very, very realistic. I want people to be entertained, but I want people to learn on the show. I don't want them to be bored. So we can have conversations and talk about, I don't know, you can talk about intimacy and it can end up being boring for people if you don't have the right questions and the right guests and the right situation. So for me, I take the time out to get to understand and know my guests, and they get to understand and know who I am, and I don't hide that, when I get into this, you know, it's going to be entertaining because trust me, I have a list of questions that I may have written down, but as to be quite honest with you, I don't use my questions. I
Okay.
may use one to start the conversation, but it's based on the answers and it's based on how we banter back and forth on what the next question is going to be. And when you do that on a show, and I think on a podcast, it gets the audiences just they're pumped up, and in all honesty, it gets the person that you have on the show excited too, and now you're going back and forth, and before you know it, oh my God, we got to end the show. Oh,
Right.
well, you got to come back next week for the next show because I didn't know that Alicia, the impact mentor, was going to give me all this information. So I got to have her come back to the show so we can really talk about what's going on. That gets people excited, and that's how I choose my guests. I vet them first, um, and if it's a topic that I want to talk about,
Okay.
and that's how I get them on.
So I'm glad you mentioned that in terms of the questions. I was going to ask that because I know I've gone on some shows and they're like, these are the questions I'm going to ask you. Be prepared to answer these. And other people are like, well, I like to just let it flow and,
Hmm.
kind of make it more conversational. And then my other question, you already answered it, was you talk to them beforehand. So
Yes,
awesome. Thank you.
because when your audience, so for you folks out that are considering doing whichever direction you want to go once you figure out who you are and what you want to do. And please, and I really mean this, the information that was just mentioned moments ago by the impact mentor, the way Alicia listed out how you come up with those things, that's very important. It's not just knowing who you are, but she told you the 3 steps for that plan. But when you're going to do this, you want your guests to feel as comfortable as your neighbor next door that you're probably very close to, because that's how you're going to get the right information out. And people that are watching you, they want to feel you, they want to feel your guests, and they want to feel that it's a real show and not so rehearsed. That's why I don't do the written out questions, because I think we end up going into a direction, and if everything is listed out, we don't get to give our audience what they're looking for. They get to see a script. And I think that audiences, if they want scripts, they're going to watch TV shows all day. Well, I don't want them to want to watch a TV show. I want them to come back to the right mentality so they can be like, I need to get some of this information from this man and whoever his guest is. So that's why I do it that way.
Okay. Thank you.
I totally agree. Jacqueline, I didn't tell y'all till the day of. Oh, well, here's what we're talking about. And I still didn't even give you any questions. I was just kind of like, here's the topic. And I did that on purpose because I wanted a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And I would also recommend, when you're trying to decide whether you should do a podcast or not, there is one required skill. And I know we didn't talk about this.
Mm-mm.
You have to have the gift of gab. Like that, pure point blank. If you don't like to talk, maybe podcasting is not for you. And I don't mean to say it in a mean way.
Keeping it real.
But it's absolutely true. If you don't have the gift of gab, if you don't know how to talk longer than 5 minutes, you're probably not going to go that far. And that is a requirement. I'm just going to be honest. That is the one skill. You don't need to know tech. You don't need to know lighting. You don't need no background. You don't need to know that. But if you don't have the gift of talking, it's probably not going to go very far. And it should be an extension of your current gifts. So like for me, I am a writer, but I have found that people see me more when they hear me. They don't have to see me all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But if they can hear me, they can gauge my personality. There are episodes where I'm listening, I'm like, oh my gosh, Alicia, you sounded so dry. And those will be the ones where I get the most like, oh my gosh, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, what? For real? So
For real.
you never know, right? So that's what I mean. Like, I'm aware. I know myself enough to know that I don't have to be on video. But as long as you can hear my voice, then I make the impact that I'm trying to make. And if that's not you, if you don't have that gift of gab, if your greatest gift is writing, then you're gonna have to. But you want a podcast, then you're gonna have to figure out, how can I bring the connection that I make with people to a podcast. And there are ways of doing that. I know if you look at YouTube, right, there are some people that can turn on the camera and they can just talk. But if you notice, there are some people, they are reading a script and they're doing a voiceover again, because they have to write it. And that's still okay, because they're a writer. And as long as they're reading what they write, it's fine, because they put their talent and their gift and their energy and their je ne sais quoi is in their writing. So I think that that's important. So if you have to go off of a script when you're doing a podcast, if you have to write your questions, but be very cognitive of tone, be very cognitive of pitch and things like that when you do talk, because you don't want to, kill to over be boring, like Marcus said. But for me, for guests, you know what? know thyself. I guess I attract who I am. So I never
Mm,
really had to do a whole lot of vetting. Jacqueline knows I used to just put out there like, hey, I'm looking for new people for for my episode. I mean, for my season, season 2 is coming up, it's bop, bop, bop. And I would just get people who were interested. And I just took you. It didn't matter what you were doing, what you weren't doing, what level you were, because I knew me. I could pull out of you what I needed.
hmm I like that. I like that a lot. And for me, when I say vetting, it's more so for me, so
Mm,
they know who I am. Because I'm animated, I can be silly. I don't want to surprise you. So when I'm vetting you, I'm allowing you to vet me because I'm like I get really into it, um, and get involved. Like Jacqueline, for you, and thank you for me being a guest and allowing me to answer some questions in your business accelerator boot camp. You had to at least think about who you wanted to impact your audience. So
Mhm.
how did you come up with choosing us? Just a quick question. Don't know what you think.
Well, Marcus, I know that, whatever you touch is, sense of excellence. Well, both of you actually. And for you, Marcus, I knew I knew that you would be, or I was when I thought about you, I thought about either the show, sharing your expertise on that, or about speaking,
Okay.
coaching people, in reference to speaking engagements.
I have fun with that
So
too.
when I knew that I wanted to include that, and you're very personable. I think you're very relatable. That's what I'm looking for. I think you're very relatable.
Well, thank you.
Now, Alicia, I know that you have your podcast, and I know that you were going to tell people step by step. You know what I mean? I know people are going to be able to, because some people, they know what they're talking about, but
Mhm.
they don't necessarily deliver it well, I guess.
hmm
You know what I mean? You still people that they enjoy listening to you. They get
Mhm.
excited, but afterwards they're like, okay, I don't what did she say? You know what I mean? So I knew you were gonna bring it in that way, in that area.
Okay.
Because so that people would actually be able to say, okay, all right, so she told me, Anchor is really good. Okay, let me go ahead and check that out. Let me write down this. You know what I mean? They can literally write down a few actionable steps and
Mhm.
actually start moving in that direction.
mm.
So
So
y'all see what I did, right?
I see
For
what you
audience.
did. I
See, I
see what you
flipped the
did.
script and asked the business accelerator boot camp host what
Yeah,
she thought, and that's why I want people to understand who I am when
right.
I'm doing the vetting. I don't want them surprised on how I'm going to ask
Hmm.
questions and what I'm going to do. And Jacqueline, I've seen you speak in public. I can't express how excited I am to be on the Business Accelerator Bootcamp and what you're bringing to people that need this, because so many people are trying to figure out, how do I get my podcast off the ground? Do I do a live show? What am I supposed to do? And you have put this together, and you put in a bunch of episodes together. So a lot of people are going to be extremely surprised and educated on everything, and definitely entertained, y'all,
Right,
on
and entertain.
what you have to show them. So that's really what I like for people to know about me when I vet them, because I don't want them to be totally surprised, because one, I'm so animated, two, I'm kind of silly, but then I can get very serious very quickly if I need to.
Mm,
But that takes away from the show, in my opinion. But if I have to go that direction,
mm,
it's quite all right too.
Yeah. Well, let me just say this. So we have about 10 minutes,
mm.
and I want to say that, the both of you are awesome, and I really appreciate, you guys being here. And, Marcus, I really appreciated your feedback during the leadership experience tour. I learned so much from you, or, all of
Thank
you.
you.
You all brought something different to the table, and I wanted to basically stay connected. And Alicia, the same with you, because we've been interacting over these last few years.
Mhm.
And, I see, quality, consistent person. And
Mhm.
I wanted to add a quick funny. I typically don't interview people before my show,
Mm.
and I don't do it really because of the time factor. I work a full-time job. I got a 10-year-old, and so I'm kind of going in a lot of different directions. And so I heard you, so audience, I heard you. I hope you guys really listened to that and kind of took that in, because I've literally gotten online and I've gotten people that not a lot, but I've gotten some people that don't want to talk. And I'm thinking, why
Mhm.
did you come on the show and you're gonna give a one-word answer and then just stop and look at me?
Mm. Mm.
So keep that in mind about whether you're doing a live show, or whether, now with technology, they have a lot of different options about maybe if you want to pre-record it and then do it live. And I'm looking at the time because Marcus, I wanted you to mention that. Do you guys think we have enough time for you to talk about that a little bit, like live versus pre-recorded, and then still have enough time? So I want to make sure you guys get an opportunity to, talk about, what you guys have coming up and stuff like that.
Sure, I think so. What do you think, Alicia?
Because we got about
Absolutely. We have time.
9 minutes. Okay. Okay. Go ahead.
So, Alicia, if you would like to start, I would love for you to start because I love what you have to say.
Oh, well, thanks. Um, well, she asked you a question. She asked you about because see, I don't do live shows, but I will tell you why I don't do live shows and put it like that.
Okay.
And this is not a deterrent against anybody who's inkling for a live show. This is Alicia. Know thyself, as Marcus has said from the beginning. A perfectionist. So when I'm editing ahs, oohs, like, and I want that out of the finished product, unless because some of that stuff is character, so I don't take out all of it, but some of the redundant stuff I'll take out. And then it never fails. I'm in the middle of recording something and 15,000 people want to call me right at that
Mm-hmm.
moment. My computer starts making sounds because I'm getting Facebook messages, beeps, and all of this stuff. And so to me, the stress of doing a live show, because there's my stuff and then I don't know
Mm-hmm.
what you have. So then I have to make sure that your lighting is correct, So the camera aspect, are there podcasts out there where they have the video aspect of their podcast? Absolutely. I don't do that. You will not find my podcast on YouTube where it's a video format. Just because I might be recording my podcast literally from my bed, or sometimes I have, y'all can't see it, but I have a beautiful Blue Yeti. Okay. But I don't always record from this thing. I have a voice recorder on my phone. A lot of times I'm outside and I'm recording.
Mm-hmm.
So I like the freedom of being able to record whenever, however, whether I'm in PJs or whether I'm dressed up. I like that aspect. I don't
Okay.
feel like I have to put on to do something.
Okay.
Um, because again, I know I just need to be audio, so you don't have to see me. Um, so that's mostly the reason why I chose not to do a live show or a video format, because of lighting and the tech and the
Mhm.
stress of things that I can't control being a factor. So that's my why I don't
Okay.
do it.
Thank you.
So, for me,
Mhm.
I like live because, my opinion, it's real. People get to see it in real time. They get to feel the real emotion. Remember, when I started this, I said I'm an emotional intelligence coach.
Mhm.
I'm certified in it. So I want people to really feel what the conversation is actually about at that moment. Now, when I feel that a person that I have on the show may like feel nervous, or they get go into the and the and the I will throw a question out there to calm them down, or I will jump in and make a joke to keep them grounded. And I like that aspect of it because I like for my audience to feel what's happening, because I think it draws them in and connects them to what we're discussing more. What I would like more often is to be able to have more real time questions from the audience, but I haven't gotten to that point yet. but I would love that because it allows the audience to be involved and interact. But I enjoy that aspect because it allows for the just the realness of it, in my opinion. And I help my guests, and sometimes my guests have to help me because sometimes I can be like, well, I had a question and I can't remember, and they'll just throw out a question, but then the audience gets to actually see, oh, he's just a regular person
Mm-hmm.
and he doesn't mind being afraid because we all have anxiety of something. We all get nervous about something. And this pandemic has caused a lot of people to develop even more anxiety and even more fear of talking face to face. And there's so much, they have so much fun, or it's so much easier to do this over video. But when you have a person live with you talking, they got to put that anxiety to the side, or you got to help them put it to the side. But it helps the audience understand that each one of us are just human beings and we make mistakes, and they get more involved. That's just my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Just a real quick question before you guys wrap up. What platform do you use, Marcus?
I am actually on OnStage Plus.
On
Uh,
Stage Plus. Okay.
yes, so you can find all my episodes on onstageplus.lightcast.com, and it is titled Right Mentality. And also, when I go live, I usually don't do Facebook Live. Not that I don't want to do Facebook Live, but I haven't really been good at it with the Zoom aspect of it. And I don't like using my phone because I want the people to feel me when I'm talking, because y'all know I talk with my hands. And I can't be sitting there with this little bitty screen. I need you to see all of this, all the right mentality when I'm talking. So my goal for this year, and the word that I put on myself for this year, is consistency. I will start to be very intentional and consistent on going on Instagram and Facebook Live this year. That is what you will see more of from Marcus Wright.
All right.
But right now, all my episodes can be found on onstageplus.lightcast.com. And the title is called The Right Mentality.
All right.
Yeah, so you can find Position to Impact podcast on Apple, Google, Spotify, Podbean, Anchor, and it's Position to Impact podcast. And you can find me on Instagram, the Impact Mentor. And I always have sound clips, sound bites, all that, audiograms, all that great stuff on my Instagram. And I recommend, if you do have a podcast, Instagram is by far the best platform for marketing.
I'm glad you mentioned that. Okay. I was gonna. Okay.
Marketing. It
Now,
is
why do you say that though? If you think.
because it's fast.
Oh. Okay.
Facebook, it's really hard to advertise on Facebook because people don't search on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
No
Oh.
one's searching for anything on
Okay.
Facebook. Nothing.
All right. I hope you all are writing that down.
I mean, but think about, so
It's
okay, now we're
important.
shifting. So, so what I do in my consulting business is marketing. So teeny. So with Facebook, I always tell people, when you get on a platform, be a consumer of the platform first. Look at your habits. When did you ever search for anything on Facebook? Never have I ever. Unless someone tells me to go look for something. But to
Right.
just go on Facebook and just start typing stuff in to look for it, I never.
Okay.
So really the only way to promote your podcast on Facebook would be either through ad spend,
Right.
or if you're posting it in other groups on promo days.
Right.
That's
Mm-hmm.
pretty much the only way you can post. And then, if you get people who your Facebook friends, then of course you're posting on your personal page or something like that. But really Facebook, unless you can throw money at it,
Okay.
there's really nothing you can really do in that regard. But with Instagram, I mean, it can go, now that they have reels, just putting your sound bite as a reel.
Okay.
Anybody and everybody can listen to it.
Okay.
But prior to reels, you still had hashtags. So people, and here's the cool part. Other podcasters listen to other podcasters' podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
They do.
Okay.
So don't think that you can't use hashtags for, like, Black podcasters of Instagram, stuff like that, because people are always looking for guests.
Right.
So the hashtag is searched. So people will look at different things, or people who are looking for Black podcasts because they don't want to listen to something else. So Instagram is more searchable
Oh,
than
searchable. Okay.
Facebook is. So
Okay.
you can be found by other people who are not already following you. So that's why I said Instagram is a fantastic platform for promoting your podcast because you can grow.
I like that.
I like that too. Thanks for sharing.
No problem.
So, both of you, thank you so much. You've given a wealth of information, and this really, and that's the purpose of this boot camp, is for you to be able to take this one particular episode, right, or not episode, panel, let me say panel, this one particular panel, and be able to run with it, figure out if it's for you and how you're going to go about doing it.
Mhm.
So thank you so much for listening and tuning in. I want to thank you, guests, for being here. So much appreciated. Thank you for coming and sharing your knowledge and your expertise. So again, I'm Jacqueline Kabah Harrison. I am your host for A Queen's Roundtable Leadership Symposium. This particular one is titled the Business Accelerator Bootcamp, to allow you to do just that, to be able to accelerate your business. So thank you for joining us, and make sure that you check out all of the other panels, as well as reach out to the different guests to collaborate, to work with them, work for them, whatever the case is. Reach out. It's all about connecting, and I want to help you level up in your business. All right. Take care, everyone.